One day like any other, our protagonist of this story, better known as Izuku Midoriya or Deku, which is his hero name, was a green-haired boy with eyes of the same color and freckles. He was training because he was already in the second year of the hero course at the UA, the most prestigious school for having taught very famous heroes such as the symbol of peace All Might, while our protagonist was training his kosei until his phone rang. He checked it and noticed that it was his mother. He quickly answered and she told him. "Inko, Izuku come home quickly," said her mother, a little nervous. He quickly activated his kosei and went at full speed to his house, but when he got to the door his teacher Aizawa said, "Aizawa, Izuku, where is he going?" But he didn't pay attention to him and jumped and fell outside the nail to start running like hell. When he got home, he kicked open the door to find his mother and a black-haired girl with green eyes who looked very similar to him. 10 minutes before, Izuku's mother, or better known as Inko Midoriya, was washing the dirty dishes until she heard a noise in the living room. She went to see who was older. She was surprised to find a black-haired girl with freckles who looked very similar to her son, and she also had green eyes. Izuku's mother, or better known as Inko Midoriya, was washing the dirty dishes until she heard a noise in the living room. She went to see who was older. To her surprise, she found a dark-haired girl with freckles very similar to her. Inko stared at the girl, who was sore from the blow she had received, until she noticed Inko. She looked at her and said, "Hello Grandma, why do you look younger?" Inko was bewildered by what the girl said, since she could not be a grandmother since she only had one son. "Inko, who are you?" Inko asked the girl. "I think you forgot my grandmother. I am Masumi Midoriya, daughter of Izuku Midoriya and Momo Yaoyorozu." This surprised Inko, who believed that her son had had a daughter and did not tell her. She was very nervous. She grabbed her cell phone and called her son, who arrived almost instantly, kicking the door causing it to open instantly. Now, when our protagonist arrived, Masumi immediately approached him and hugged him, leaving Izuku very bewildered, and what she said left him in shock. "Masumi, hi Daddy, why do you look younger and why doesn't Grandma recognize me?" she said, a little scared. Izuku was in shock because of what Masumi told him, but when he saw that the girl was afraid, he hugged her and said, "Izuku, calm down, everything will be fine." After this, Masumi calmed down and Izuku and she sat on the couch in the green-haired boy's house, and he asked, "Izuku, well girl, why do you call me Daddy?" "Masumi, because you are my dad." "Come on Daddy, are you going to tell me that you forgot your daughter Masumi?" "Izuku, you can't be my daughter, I'm still a virgin, unless who is your mother?" "Masumi, my mom or your wife is Momo Yaoyorozu." "Izuku, it's obvious that you inherited her beauty, but there's an explanation for this. What did you do before seeing my mother?" "Masumi, she was helping Aunt May with a machine until suddenly it exploded, and then I only saw my grandmother." "Izuku, now it's easy to know what happened. The machine was a time machine. When it exploded, it sent you to this time." "Masumi, that explains why you look younger." "Izuku, well, since for now we don't know how to return you to your time, you will stay with me until you can return to your time." "Masumi, okay." "Izuku, well let's go back to the UA, because if I don't come back before nightfall Aizawa-sensei will kill me," said Izuku, and then Masumi stood up too. He did the same, so Izuku, with Masumi holding on to the monkey, went to the door and said Izuku before leaving. "Izuku, bye mom." He told Inko that she was very quiet during the whole conversation to say goodbye to her daughter and granddaughter, that after saying goodbye they walked to the UA, and when they are at the door Izuku activates the full count and jumping over the door with Masumi in his arms to run towards the bedrooms, but Momo, who was in the living room when seeing that Izuku was running, says, "Momo, hello Midoriya." But before continuing, Izuku passed by her very quickly, avoiding the girl, so that she quickly left and locked herself in her room. Something that left Momo bewildered because Izuku had never avoided her, so to speak. After Izuku entered at full speed, he sat his daughter on her bed and then locked the door. He turned to his daughter and said, "Izuku, so my daughter, how am I with your mother in the future?" "Masumi, well Dad, you are very affectionate with Mom. My mom often tells me that you are the best thing she has ever had. My mom is very happy with you. Whenever you are together, sadness does not exist." "Izuku, I make your mom very happy, how nice." Izuku said with a smile, knowing what makes the woman he suddenly marries happy, until suddenly a sound is heard coming from the door and Momo's voice. "Momo, Midoriya-san, can I come in?" At that moment our protagonist got very nervous, making signs to his daughter to get into the closet. She understood and got into the closet. After a slight sigh, Izuku opened the door to see the pretty Momo, a black-haired girl with eyes of the same color, with the figure of a goddess, huge breasts and an ass almost the same size, and an angel face. At that moment our protagonist became very nervous, signaling to his daughter to get into the closet. She understood and went into the closet. After a slight sigh, Izuku opened the door to see the cute Momo, a black-haired girl with. Izuku, "Hello Momo-chan, do you need me for something?" he said with his typical smile that made Momo blush. Momo, "Nothing, I just came to ask if you were okay because you ran so fast to your room." Izuku, "Don't worry Momo-chan, I was just in a hurry." At that moment a noise was heard coming from inside the room. Izuku, knowing that it was his daughter, quickly went inside like Momo following him to find a girl that she did not know, but Izuku quickly approached her knowing that it was his daughter and she told him. "Masumi, sorry dad." Izuku, knowing that he could not hide his daughter any longer, just sighed and said. Izuku, "Don't worry, it had to happen, but it's okay." Momo, who was watching the father and daughter scene with a WTF face is sighing and taking courage, said. Momo, "Midoriya-san, what's going on? Why does that girl call you father?" Izuku, "Well Momo, she is Masumi, my daughter and yours." Masumi, "Hello mom," said Masumi and then saw a Momo in shock at what she had just been told. She was very nervous, she said. Momo, "What?" The sub-president shouted at what they told her, a reaction that many would do if they were told the same thing, but Izuku said. Izuku, "Calm down Momo-san, sit down and I'll explain." Momo ISO case and quickly sat down and Izuku began to explain everything about how he met his daughter and everything else. Momo, after hearing everything, just said. Momo, "In short, Masumi is my daughter and yours from the future." Izuku, "Exactly." After Izuku said this, Momo approached Masumi and hugged her and then said. Momo, "I see you inherited your father's eyes." Izuku, "Come on Momo-chan, she looks more like you, don't you see that she is just as beautiful as you?" Said Izuku with his typical smile, making Momo blush because he called her beautiful. But then Masumi says. Masumi, "Dad, I'm hungry." Izuku, "Okay, I've got food." Momo, "Can you bring me 2 Midoriya-san?" After this Izuku went down to the kitchen and prepared 3 plates of kasudo, which was his favorite food. With 3 plates he went up and entered his room. After eating, Masumi said. Masumi, "Daddy, sing me a song." Izuku, But I don't know how to sing," he said nervously. Masumi, "Come on Daddy, I know you know how to sing, you can't fool me." Izuku, sighs, "I can't lie to you about what you want me to sing to you." Masumi, "Nothing special, I just want you to sing." Izuku, "Good start," he said and then took a breath and began to sing. Izuku, "We felt the breeze of the wind that managed to pass through here and the sadness followed it from where it came, and after crying the sky became bluer, through it I could see how it shone. Words from my father that were always cold, today I feel the warmth of those words when they arrive. I never knew about smiles or dreams, nor kindness, so everything you do I decided to imitate. Just a little more, it will be just a little more, just a little will be enough, just a little more, it will be just a little more, and finally we can be together. Through time we travel without stopping, you and I, time climbs, I got tired of going backwards, today I want to advance more, with sadness you will laugh, with joy you will cry, it's because everything about you has dominated your heart. That toy that the starry sky gave me is now right in my room. Up until now I have made 100 wishes, but I only want one to come true. With that girl that I never felt I could talk to today, I told her that after classes I'll see you, and it's never bad to do new things, to change precisely if you're by my side. Just a little more, it will be just a little more, just a little will be enough, just a little more, it will be just a little more, and finally we can be together. Let's travel through time. I know you and I saw each other once before. I remembered my name and my place, what I lost. There is something I know, that without you the world has no reason to exist. You know that the world without you is like an August that has already lost its charm, without vacations. A world without you is so sad that Santa Claus himself forgot to smile. A world without you is no reason to exist. Let's travel through time without stopping, you and I, time is catching up, I'm tired of going backwards, today I want to move forward more, but nothing else matters anymore, nothing else matters anymore, I continue ahead. Let's travel through time without stopping, you and I, time, I'm tired of going backwards, I don't want this, all I ever wanted was for the tears to dry from your face, but you refused to pretend, and in the end I could know why they fell from your face. With sadness you will laugh, with joy you will cry, because everything about you has dominated your heart. End of song. When Izuku finished singing, he found a somewhat adorable scene, as his daughter was asleep and his friend future wife was asleep. When he saw this he just smiled and then laid them down in his bed to give each one a kiss on the forehead, and he lay down on the floor and fell asleep. A day like any other where the birds sang. People went to their jobs or to school. Leaving that aside, we focused on the room of a green-haired man named Izuku, in which we can see that Momo slowly opened his eyes to see beautiful black orbs. She got up, noticing that she was not in her room. She looked to the side to find her daughter sleeping next to her. When she saw her, she knew immediately that she was in the green-haired man's room, but she didn't see him anywhere. She looked at the floor looking for him. Finding him asleep on the floor, she just smiled, seeing how considerate her friend was. She got out of bed, sat next to Izuku, and put her head on his chin to stay like that for a few minutes until the green-haired man slowly opened his eyes to find his friend staring at him. He got nervous and said, "Izuku, Momo-san, what are you doing?" "Momo, good morning, sleepyhead," Momo said with a smile that made Izuku blush. He returned the smile to look at his watch and see that there were 30 minutes left until classes started. He says, "Izuku, Momo, 30 minutes left, you're going to be late." Seeing that it was true, she left the room very quickly and went to get ready while Izuku just stared at his daughter, who was still not awake. He stared at her, knowing that she couldn't go to school today because he had to take care of her. He just moved her hair a little and then sat on the floor. In 20 minutes, Momo returned to our green-haired boy's room. He entered and said, "Momo, Midoriya-san, I'm ready." But when you see the green-haired boy without his uniform, you wonder, "Momo, why don't you have your uniform on?" "Izuku, I'm not going to go, you see, I have to take care of Masumi." "Momo, it's not fair that I go while you stay taking care of her." Izuku stood up and approached Momo, taking her hands, and he said to her, "Izuku, don't worry about me, your turn, I'll take care of Masumi, your turn, and then you can give me the classes." Momo sighs, "Well, Izuku, take care of our daughter then." Izuku, "Well, it's time for you to go. Tell the teacher that I felt bad and couldn't go." Momo, "Okay, take care, Midoriya-san." She said this to give him a kiss on the cheek that surprised Izuku, but she quickly left for school. When she opened the door, Uraka immediately approached and asked, "Uraka, hey, Momo-san, didn't you see Deku before coming? When I went to pick him up, it seemed like he was still asleep." Momo, "Yes, he told me to tell him that he wasn't going to come because he feels bad." When she finished, she sat down in her seats, and secondly, Aizawa-sensei and Momo arrived. She explained to her why Izuku didn't come, but she also noticed that her best friend didn't come either. She had only one thought and wrote it in her notebook. "Momo, Izuku, I hope you don't meet Jiru." Returning with our green-haired boy, he had already bathed and changed, but his daughter was still asleep. He was very angry at having to wake up his daughter, who looked adorable asleep. "Masumi, good morning, Daddy," she said, half asleep. "Izuku, good morning, daughter, it's time to brush your teeth." This is the case, and she went to brush her hair. After brushing her hair, she and Izuku went down to the dining room, confident that there was no one there, but unfortunately a girl named Jiru Kyoka saw them and said, "Jiru, Midoriya-san, who is that girl?" Said Jiru, so that our protagonist with many nerves turned to find a beautiful dark violet hair with a black jacket and pants of the same color. Apart from beautiful violet eyes, she had headphones in her ears and black shoes. "Izuku, she's my niece." Jiru, "Midoriya, you don't have any brothers." Izuku, knowing that he had screwed up, only proceeded to tell Jiru that Masumi was his and Momo's daughter from the future. She believed everything that Izuku said, since she knew that Izuku would not lie about something as serious as this. Jiru approached Masumi, analyzed her completely, and said, "Jiru, you are identical to your mother, but you have your father's freckles and eyes." Masumi, "Thanks, Aunt Jiru." Jiru, seeing this, rubbed Masumi's hair, but then a question came to his head. He looked at Izuku and said, "Jiru, hey Midoriya, what would a daughter or son of yours and mine be like?" This question surprised Izuku, but he also began to wonder the same thing. But before he said anything, a portal opened in front of them, and from there a figure came out so that Izuku could stand in front of the two girls in a fighting pose. But little by little he shrank until he saw the figure of a girl who could then be seen to be indeed a short girl with green eyes like Izuku, while her hair was violet and she had a white and blue uniform plus a green bow in one part of her hair. This question surprised Izuku, but he also began to wonder the same thing. But before he said anything, a portal opened in front of them, and from there a figure came out so that Izuku could stand in front of the two girls in a fighting pose. But 18. The little girl looked everywhere until she saw Izuku, Jiru and Masumi, who were staring at her. She said, "Mom, Dad, why do you look so young, and who is she?" The girl said while pointing at Masumi, who is with Izuku and Jiru. They were in shock at what the girl said. After the girl, who appeared out of nowhere asking a question that was obviously directed towards Izuku and Jiru since they were the only ones there at that time, they were in shock because of what the girl said until Izuku came out of shock. When he came out, he approached the girl, bowed to her height and said, "Izuku, girl, if I heard correctly you called me dad and Jiru mom." "Yes, you are my dad and Jiru is my mom." "Izuku, okay, but could you tell me your name?" "Of course, my name is Jin Midoriya." "Izuku, well daughter, as you may have noticed, we are not in your time, that's why we look younger." Jin, yes, it seems strange to me that they were younger, but I didn't fall into the theory of having traveled in the future. At that, Jiru, who was watching everything with Masumi, approached and saw Jin and said, "Jiru, it is clear from your intelligence and your green eyes that you are Midoriya's daughter." "Izuku, because otherwise you are just as beautiful as your mother," said Izuku, making Jiru and Jin blush. But in that, Masumi, who was watching, approaches Izuku, and while pulling on his pants so that he would pay attention when she gained her father's attention, she said something that made Izuku tense. "Masumi, daddy, if she is your daughter, that means you were unfaithful to my mother." At that moment, Izuku felt an aura that wanted to kill him behind him. He didn't want to turn around, but he was sweating like crazy. At that point, Jiru spoke in a voice from beyond the grave. "Jiru, Izuku Midoriya, you were unfaithful to me." Izuku swallows hard, "No." Jiru was about to stick his connectors into Izuku for being unfaithful, but then Jin spoke. "Jin, hey, who are you and why do you call my daddy Papa?" I asked Masumi. "Masumi, I am the daughter of Izuku, he is my father and my mother is Momo." Jin, "That's impossible because in my future my Aunt Momo is married to Mr. Todoroki." At that, Masumi takes a thinking pose and says, "Masumi, now that you mention it, you can't be my Aunt Jiru's daughter either because you're tired of the defective Pikachu." At that, Jiru stopped threatening Izuku and he started to think about what was happening because he had children with two different girls until an idea came to him. "Izuku, there is only one answer for this." Jin/Masumi, "Which potato?" Izuku, "That you come from different universes or dimensions, but to confirm this theory you only have to do one thing, daughter Masumi. Where am I and your mom on the top?" Masumi, "Let's see, dad, you are numero 1 and mom is number 5. Izuku, "And what position is your Aunt Jiru in?" Masumi, "In the 14th. Izuku, "And your daughter Jin, what is the position of your mother and me and your Aunt Momo?" Jin, "Dad, you are number 1 and mom is number 4 while Aunt Momo is number 17. Izuku, "That proves everything, you come from alternate dimensions." After that, Izuku, after hearing the sound of Our Lady Jiru and her daughter, who were obviously hungry, went to prepare breakfast for the 4 of them while she went to watch TV. When she finished cooking, everyone ate and started playing with the girls. Afterwards, they fell asleep, so Izuku took them to their room and put them to bed and then returned to the living room where he sat on the couch next to Jiru and started talking to her. Izuku, "Jiru, I think seeing Jin answers your question." Jiru, "What question?" Izuku, "The one you did when you saw Masumi. You said, 'Izuku, how do you think a daughter of yours and mine will be?'" Jiru, "Yes, who would have thought that I would have a daughter with you in some dimension?" Izuku, "Yes, that was a surprise." Jiru, "I wonder what you saw in that dimension. Just look at me. I don't have big breasts like Momo or anything else. I don't even dress like a girl." Izuku, "Come on Jiru, don't say that you are pretty, rather beautiful. It doesn't matter if you don't have what other girls have, just remember you are beautiful inside and out. If I believed in you in some dimension there must be a reason." Jiru, "You're right Midoriya." She hugs him, "Thanks for opening my eyes." Jiru said while still hugging Izuku, who reciprocated the hug and began to rub her hair. Izuku accidentally fell asleep because of how pretty she looked. He didn't want to wake her up, so he made her sleep better, so he put her on his lap while he rubbed her hair, but accidentally fell asleep too. After the UA classes ended, all the students of Class 1A all went quietly to their dormitories, but 2 girls who were walking only thinking about one person. Momo/Uraka, Deku/Izuku. But they had already arrived at the dormitories of Class A, where they accidentally went to the relaxation table to see if Izuku was there. Her surprise was great when she saw that Izuku was on the sofa but with a sleeping Jiru at his feet, or rather on his chin. Uraka, seeing this, could only do one thing, which was to scream. "Uraka, what?" She screamed, causing Izuku and Jiru to wake up upon hearing the loud scream, but they were not the only ones. All the students went to the relaxation area to see why Uraka screamed, but this also woke up Izuku's daughters, who quickly came down and threw themselves on top of Izuku, ignoring the others. They said, "Jin/Masumi, Daddy, what's wrong? Why are they screaming?" At that, all the students were left open-mouthed by what the 2 girls said. Izuku, with his active paternal side, hugged the 2 girls and in a calming voice said, "Izuku, calm down my girls, It was just Uraka who was scared of something. You have nothing to fear, I'm here to protect you, said Izuku, so that later the girls fell asleep again on their father's chest. Jiro and Momo could only smile to see that Izuku was a good father. Izuku saw how everyone had their eyes fixed on him and the girls sighed and said, Izuku, I guess you want to know what's going on. Everyone attended and Izuku, while accommodating his daughters on his lap so they were comfortable, said, Izuku, I will tell you, but I warn you not to speak too loudly. I don't want them to wake up, he said, looking at his daughters. If someone speaks too loudly, I will kill them, he said with a serious face, making everyone shiver, even Bakugo himself. Everyone could only swallow hard, waiting for Izuku's answer. Izuku, in short, these are my daughters from the future, but each one comes from a different dimension. The black-haired one is called Masumi and is my daughter with Momo, while the violet-haired one is called Jin and is my daughter with Jiro. At the green-haired man's response, everyone understood, but one Uraka was angry with Jiro and Momo for going ahead and having daughters with Izuku. Uraka, these damn things got ahead of me, Izuku said. They came from different dimensions, so there will be one where I have a son or daughter with me. What would it be like? At that very moment, a dimensional gap opened, from which a large, completely white silhouette began to emerge, and then it began to shrink until it reached a medium height and the light that covered the silhouette disappeared, and then a brown-haired woman with freckles and green eyes wearing a black and white dress could be seen. She looked everywhere until she saw Uraka and then put on a serious and annoyed face and then saw her father with a smile. Seeing him, she knew that he was younger and that she was in the past, but when she saw her father's smile on her face, she looked everywhere until she saw Uraka and then put on a serious and upset face and then saw her father with a smile looking at her. Seeing that he was younger, she knew she was in the past, but when she saw her father's smile in the blink of an eye, she appeared in front of her father and then hugged him. He did not deny the hug and also hugged her. After a few minutes she separated from her father, said, Obviously this is not my time, so I introduce myself. Dad, my name is Izumi Midoriya. Izuku, nice to meet you daughter, and could you tell me who your mother is? At that Izumi put on a serious face, going to reveal who her mother was, but at that Uraka knew perfectly well that that was her daughter with Izuku. She approached Izumi and before arriving she said, Uraka, Deku, it is clear that she is the daughter of you and me. She tried to hug Izumi but she moved, causing Uraka to fall to the ground, but then Izumi said, Izumi, yes, you are my mother, but for me you are dead, bitch. At this revelation, everyone was shocked by the answer, and even more so because he called Uraka a bitch, who was angry. Uraka, hey girl, I'm your mother, you respect me, she said, trying to slap him, but Izumi dodged her. Izumi, don't come here and demand respect from me, bitch. The only one who deserves my respect is my father, not a bitch like you who made me and my father lose the most beautiful thing we had. Uraka, what are you talking about? Izumi, you bitch made me lose my dad's smile and the sparkle in his eyes. You made me lose something that was the most important thing to me, and all just because I supposedly didn't have a kosei, Izumi said on the verge of tears. At that, Izuku quickly left Jin and Masumi on the sofa and then hugged Izumi and took her away from Uraka. After our favorite green-haired boy pushed his daughter Izumi away and then hugged her, he said, Izuku, calm down. Izumi, relax. Izuku told his daughter that she was relaxing on her father's chest, who had her hugged. After she relaxed, she separated from her father and said, Izumi, sorry dad, I can't stand seeing that bitch Uraka. Izuku, hey daughter, why do you say that your mother is a bitch? Izumi, she is not my mother, I only have one father and the story is a bit long. Izuku, well, we have time. Izumi, good, he said, and then sat on the couch with the other students from class 1. Since they wanted to know why Izumi called his mother a whore. Izumi, well, my story begins when I was 5 years old. I had not awakened my kosei yet. This gave Izuku an idea of what happened. Then my dad told me that it was normal, but Uraka simply got nervous and got angry. The next day they took me to the doctor. After doing the test they told me that suddenly I could not awaken my kosei. I got sad, but my dad with a smile told me that I could awaken my kosei, that I should not give up. But on the other hand, my mom did not say anything to me. When we got home she tried to hit me. My dad stopped her, but she yelled at me that I was useless and then went and locked herself in her room. My dad only told me that he would help me train so that my kosei would awaken. I very excited said, thanks. The next day we went to start my training very early, and so my training began. When we got home, the worst thing of my life happened. We were looking for my mom until we heard strange noises coming from my dad's room. My dad seemed tense, and when he opened the door, we saw something we never wanted to see, my mom with other men, betraying our family. My father, seeing this, activated his kosei and quickly moved me away from the house to go to a house on the other side of the city where my father had a house. He left me in one of the rooms and told me to sleep well. I just acted as if I had forgotten everything and fell asleep, but the next day my worst nightmare happened. My father had lost the shine in his eyes and that smile that was characteristic of him. That day my father changed and became someone without life. Seeing that made me extremely sad, so much that I woke up. My kosei was a fusion of the two kosei of my father and the vixen of Uraka because it allowed me to increase my strength and gravity in a space of 30 kilometers. My father seeing that trained me, but I never forgot what my mother did. Rather, that day my mother died for me. After finishing hearing Izumi's story, we can see that Uraka stood up from her seat where she was sitting and said, "Uraka, I don't care if you hate me, but I'd rather you hate me than be part of my family." At this everyone was surprised by Uraka's words, but she did not know that by saying that she would mark her death because an Izuku with radio would activate his kosei and then say, "Izuku, I said I would never hit a woman, but that's left aside now." Izuku clenched his fists, his anger evident, but instead of continuing, he turned away, his voice sharp as he spoke. "Izuku, Izumi was right, you're just a self-interested bitch," he said, and then approached Izumi and hugged her and then said, "Izuku, sorry for changing in the future, Izumi." "Izumi, it wasn't your fault, daddy, it was that bitch's fault." After Izuku hugged his daughter Izumi, she fell asleep. Izuku, as he could, arranged her on the sofa so as not to wake her up while he saw that his daughters Masumi and Jin were asleep. He activated One for All and arranged everything in his room and put each of his daughters in their beds because it was already night. After he finished, he looked at the girls to give each one a kiss on the forehead and then went down to find that Momo and Jiru were talking, so he decided to approach by throwing himself next to Jiru, who was sitting on the sofa like Momo. "Izuku, what are you girls talking about?" "Momo, hey Midoriya-san, don't you think it's good to inform Aizawa about the problem with our children of the future?" "Izuku, it would be a good idea, but how would you take it?" "Jiru, we don't know exactly." "Momo, also, you can't miss tomorrow." "Izuku, but who is going to take care of my girls?" "Momo, I can take care of them." "Izuku, you are the vice president, you can't miss classes." "Momo, but you can't miss it again, Aizawa will punish you." "Izuku, that's the least of my concerns now. I have to take care of my girls while I'm with them." "Jiru, I could take care of them." "Momo, you can't miss it either." "Izuku, she's right, Jiru, you can't miss it." "Jiru, then you neither." "Izuku, I have to stay, maybe more of my daughters or sons will appear." "Momo and Jiru, good point." "Izuku, well, stay here, I'll take care of the girls. Now go to sleep, it's very late." "Jiru, well, why don't you go to your room?" "Izuku, my little ones are using the bed, so I'm going to sleep on the couch." "Jiru, you can sleep with me for tonight if you want." "Izuku, I don't know, I don't want to be a bother." "Jiru, you're not Midoriya-san, so now let's go, you're going to sleep with me." Jiru said to take him by the hand and begin to take him to his room while Izuku was red and nervous. All that happened while Momo saw them and felt a pressure in her chest and then went to her room while our protagonist was already inside Jiru's room sitting on the floor very nervous until Jiru comes out of the bathroom in pajamas. Izuku said, "Izuku, WLL lend me a pillow." "Jiru, for what?" "Izuku, pee to sleep on the floor." "Jiru, no, you sleep with me in my bed." "Izuku, but." "Jiru, no buts, now you lie down in my bed quickly." Izuku, following Jiru's orders, lay down on the bed on his back and then felt her lay down on her back, feeling sleepy and already said, "Izuku, see you tomorrow, Jiru." Said our protagonist to fall deeply asleep just like a Jiru, thus ending one day giving way to another. The next day, our protagonist began to wake up feeling like he was hugging something. At first he thought it was a pillow, but when he opened his eyes he saw a sleeping Jiru on his chest. He was hugging her while she held him like a teddy bear. Our protagonist looked very red, wanting to know how they ended up like this. Our protagonist went to pick up Jiru, but she looked very tender. Wanting not to wake her up, he tried to go back to sleep, but then there was a knock on the door of Jiru's room and Momo's voice was heard. "Momo, Midoriya-san, Kyoka are already awake." That's it, Jiru began to get up, finding some green orders first, these being from Izuku. She looked at the situation, seeing that she was on the green-haired boy's chest and that she was hugging him and he was hugging her, turning very red. After Jiru noticed that she was in the arms of the green-haired protagonist, she blushed very strongly. Anyone who saw her would mistake her for a tomato. She quickly stopped hugging Izuku and stood up very quickly and went to the door of her room with a calmer blush, but her blush was still noticeable a little. Jiru opened the door to meet her best friend Momo. "Jiru, good morning ya Momo." "Momo, Good morning, Kyoka-kun, and Midoriya-san is already awake. Izuku, yes, good morning, Momo-chan. Momo blushed a little at what Izuku said to her and Jiro got a little jealous. Momo looked at Izuku again with a small, not so noticeable blush and said, Momo, well, I came to see if Jiro had already woken up, since it's almost time to go to the academy. Jiro, hearing this, quickly disappeared from the scene and a door was heard closing in the hallway. Izuku looked at himself and saw that he was still in his pajamas, so he looked at Momo to say, Izuku, Momo-chan, sorry to leave you at the door, but I have to change to go take care of my children. Momo, don't worry, I'm already going to the kitchen. Said Momo to leave Izuku alone so he could change calmly. He quickly changed his clothes and went to brush his teeth and went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast for his children. It didn't take long to finish breakfast and he prepared one for Jiro just in case. He looked at the table and there was Momo. He looked at her and said, Izuku, Momo-chan, can you prepare the table to give our children breakfast? Momo, of course, Midoriya-san. Said Momo and began to prepare the table while our friend Izuku went to wake up his three daughters Masumi, Jin, and Izumi. Izuku arrived at his room and was about to enter. When he entered, he saw his three daughters sleeping very peacefully. They looked very pretty asleep, so Izuku stayed looking at them because they looked like angels. Izuku quickly took out his cell phone and took a photo of each one and then one of all three, the last one he put as his wallpaper. After that he proposed to wake up the three of them. Izuku, wake up, angels of my heart, it's time to wake up. He said as he moved each one of them as they woke up to sit on the bed and rub their eyes. When they finished doing this, they all looked at their father and gave him a Midoriya-style smile and said, Izuku's daughters, good morning, Dad. Izuku, good morning, girls, come on, let's brush our teeth and go at breakfast. Said Izuku so that his three daughters nodded and each one went to brush their teeth with their father who was accompanying them. When the three of them finished breakfast, they went down to the dining room where breakfast was already ready and Momo was waiting to start breakfast. Izuku sat each one in a chair and he sat in a chair that was before Momo's chair, leaving Izuku in the middle because when he sat his daughters he sat them in front of Momo's chair and he sat in the middle and in front of him was Izumi, in front of Momo was Masumi. At that moment Jiro entered. She looked at everyone and said, Jiro, what happened? Izuku, nothing special, I see you're ready, come sit down and have breakfast, I've already prepared your breakfast. Jiro, really, thanks. Jiro said to sit on the chair that is to the left of Izuku's chair, since on the right side was Momo sitting. In front of where Jiro sat was Jin, who smiled at his mother, something that Jiro returned. Izuku, well, since we're all here, let's have breakfast. Said Izuku so that everyone would give thanks for the food first and then get ready to eat breakfast, accidentally giving a great image of a cute family while eating breakfast. They laughed a few times. When they finished breakfast, it was just time for the girls to leave for school, so they grabbed their bags and went to the door, followed by Izuku. When they got to the door, they both looked at Izuku and Momo said, Momo, this was a very nice breakfast. Jiro, you're right, Izuku, please take care of the girls until we arrive. Izuku, of course I will take care of them, they are my daughters. You are the ones who should take care of themselves. They tell Aizawa-sensei why I couldn't go. Momo, okay. Momo looked at Jiro and all of them approached Izuku and gave him a kiss on the cheek and then ran away, leaving a very blushing Izuku, but she looked where the girls were going and said to the air, Izuku, they are little girls. Izuku said and then went back inside the UA dormitories because even though he had a great time in the morning, his sixth sense told him that today he was going to meet another one of his children. After Momo and Jiro left for UA, our dear friend Izuku came back inside the UA dorms to find that his daughters were watching television. Izuku joined them because the series they were watching was a little comedy. After finishing watching the comedy, the four characters found themselves in a state of extreme boredom since they had been locked in the dorms for 2 days without anything to do. In that case, Izuku sees his cell phone and notices that he has a call from his mother, so Izuku looks at his daughters and they had bored faces, so he decided to say, Izuku, daughters, how about we go visit your mother, what do you think? Daughters, yes, let's go, Dad. Izuku, let me change, hey, what about if I first stop by the market and I buy you some new clothes, what do you think? Izumi, for my own good. Jin, for me too. Masumi, I just want to get out of here, I'm bored. Izuku, okay, let me change, it won't take long. Said our friend Izuku to go change clothes for ones more appropriate for the outing he was going to do right now, but something told him that he wouldn't be able to get out, but he didn't want to pay the slightest attention to his sixth sense. Now the only thing he wanted was to have a nice outing with his daughters. He quickly changed clothes to end up with a yellow jacket without a mark under that shirt. He had a blue office shirt, and apart from that he had some black jeans and his trusty red boots. Said our friend Izuku as he went to change clothes for ones more appropriate for the outing he was going to do right now, but something told him that he wouldn't be able to make it out, but he didn't want to pay the slightest attention to his sixth sense. Now the only thing he wanted to do was. After changing his clothes, he quickly went down to the living room where his daughters were waiting for him. Very bored when they saw their father, all that changed. The three girls looked at their father, and the first to speak was Izumi. "Izumi, Dad, you look great." Izumi said to her father, who blushed a little at the compliment, and apart from that the other two nodded at her sister Izumi's statement. Our friend did not pay much attention to her and said, "Izuku, since this is ready, let's go to the center," said Izuku, and then took Izumi and Jin by the hand and then looked at Masumi and said, "Izuku, Masumi, you seem to be the oldest, so I'll let you walk alone while I take care of your sisters." Izumi, "Daddy, I don't think it's fair. I'm older than her." Izuku, "Let's see, tell me your ages." Masumi, 14. Jin, 9. Izumi, 13. Izuku, "Did you see Masumi is the oldest?" Izumi. Izumi, "But I want to walk alone, I know how to take care of myself." At Izumi's response, Izuku stood at her level, looked at her and said, "Izuku, come on daughter, I'm not doing this because I think you can't take care of yourself. The thing is I only have two hands, but I assure you that if I had or could have all three, I would have them held in my hands. Now they are very important to me, so let me take care of you, yes?" Izuku told his daughter Izumi with a big smile. Seeing her father smile, she could only do a punch, but inside she felt very good seeing her father smile. Izumi, "Okay daddy, I'll let you take care of me," Izumi said to Izuku and his daughters as they began to walk towards the entrance of the UA, but a few meters before reaching the door of the UA, Izuku saw his friend from Class B, Itsuka Kendo, in the distance. Upon looking at Izuku, she immediately approached the green-haired boy and his daughters. "Kendo, hello Midoriya-san, how are you?" Izuku, "Good, and how are you Kendo-san, why are you not in your class?" Izuku asked his friend from Class B, who was a pretty orange-haired girl with light skin and light green eyes, almost the same height as the green-haired boy. She was now missing from her UA outfit. Right now she was wearing a long white shirt. She had a tie on, and finally she was wearing a black skirt that was a little short but not too much, and classic black shoes. She was currently wearing a long white shirt, she had a tie on, and finally she was wearing a black skirt that was a little short but not too short, and some classic black shoes. "Kendo, I was feeling a little bad this morning, so I'm not in class, and since I started to feel better, I decided to walk around for a while. And why aren't you in class?" Izuku, "It's just that my nieces came to visit me today and I couldn't go to class." Kendo, "But Midoriya, you don't have brothers." At Kendo's response, Izuku stood there like a stone because the excuse was no longer useful, but now he was a bit curious to know why Kendo knew, so he regained his composure and said, "Izuku, and how do you know that I don't have brothers?" Kendo, "Momo told me. Now if they are not your nieces, they are yours because they look a lot like you." Izuku, "They are my daughters from the future, introduce yourselves daughters." Masumi, "Hello Aunt Kendo, my name is Masumi Midoriya, I am the daughter of Izuku and Momo." Jin, "Hello Miss Kendo, my name is Jin, I am the daughter of Izuku and Jiru." Izumi, "Izumi Aunt Kendo, daughter of Izuku." At the revelation, Kendo was a little surprised by the revelation that had just been told to her. Aside from the fact that two called her aunt, she could only say one thing. "Kendo what?" At the response, Izuku began to explain a little by little to Kendo, who understood everything, and finished this he looked at Izuku's daughters and said, "Kendo, so they are your daughters, they look a lot like you, there are many dimensions, so I'm a little curious to know what a daughter of yours and mine would be like." Izuku went to say something, but at that very moment in the middle of the distance between Izuku and Kendo a dimensional gap appeared. Izuku already knew what was coming, so he sighed while Kendo was on guard, being prepared in case it was an attack. At that moment a girl of average height came out. Looking at Kendo, Izuku said, "Mom, Dad, why do you look so young?" We are at the moment where the dimensional gap in space that separated Kendo from Izuku has just opened. At that moment, from the dimensional gap, a short girl with orange hair like Kendo's came out, white skin like the sand of the sea, bright green eyes like her father's. From those eyes it was clear that she was Izuku's daughter. She is dressed in a pink jacket, and under that jacket she had a school-style shirt that was white with blue parts and finally a blue skirt. We are at the moment where the dimensional gap in space that separated Kendo from Izuku has just opened. At that moment, a short girl with orange hair like Kendo and white skin like her came out of the dimensional gap. This girl who just came out of the dimensional gap looked at Izuku and Kendo, being surprised by how young they looked. She then began to think why they looked so young, then she looked at her father and said, "Daddy, I guess you look so young because in some strange way I'm in the past." "Izuku, you are very intelligent daughter and you are just as beautiful as your mother." At Izuku's response, the two orange-haired girls blushed. The girl who appeared looked at her father and said, "Since you don't know my name, I'll introduce myself. My name is Kohana Midoriya. I'm the son of Kendo Midoriya and Izuku Midoriya." "Izuku, so your name means little flower who gave you your name, daughter?" "Kohana, who else but your daddy when I was born, and every time you see me you tell me my little lotus flower that brightens my days." "Kendo, I like the name by the way. Daughter, how did your father and I end up together?" "Izuku, by the way daughter, you are not the only one of my daughters who is in this time." "Kohana, what do you mean, daughter?" said Kohana, so that Izuku smiled and raised his arms so that his three daughters Masumi, Jin and Izumi could come out. They looked at their recent sister who had just appeared, smiled at her and said, "3, welcome little sister." "Izuku, and before you ask if I cheated on your mother, it wasn't like that, I'm from parallel dimensions." Kohana, "Okay, Mom, according to what you told me, you wanted to know how you and Dad ended up." "Kendo, if I may know." Kohana, "Of course." Izuku, "Okay girl, why don't we go to the dorms to talk better?" Kendo, "It seems to me." Kohana, "Whatever you say, Daddy." Izuku, "Sorry girls, I think we'll go out for a walk another day." Kasumi, "Okay Daddy, but are you taking us to the beach?" The other two nodded at what their older sister said, and Izuku looked at the three of them to give her a warm smile. Izuku, "Okay girls, let's go to the bedrooms," said Izuku to grab his daughters, while Kendo grabbed Kohana and Masumi by the hand to help Izuku. The six of them returned to their bedrooms looking like a big happy family. When they arrived, Kendo and Kohana sat on the couch in the living room while Izuku with the help of his daughters went to get some snacks. After looking for the snacks, Izuku also sat on the couch next to his other daughters. Kendo, "Come on daughter, tell me the love story of me and your father." Kendo said, a little excited, making a drop of water come out of Izuku's daughter's anime style, but Kohana laughed a little and said, Kohana, "Well, if my dad and mom from the future told me, well then the story begins when mom and dad meet in their second year at UA. My dad already knew my mom, but according to her at that time there wasn't much chemistry because my dad at that time was in a relationship with a certain Uraka, and well at that time my mom and dad didn't talk much, but one day according to dad he found his old girlfriend having relations with another man. This destroyed dad a lot, causing him to lock himself in his room for several days, and when he came out he was no longer the same. He was cold like ice itself. He became colder than Todoroki himself. Dad was cold with everyone until one day he ran into mom, who saw the strange change in dad and decided to help him. He began to follow dad to see why he became like that. One day mom found dad in a remote part of the UA. Crying, she hugged him and began to comfort him. Mom began to gain dad's trust and they began to become very close, and according to mom, every day with dad she saw how he began to be the same again. Before, in the third year of the UA, dad and mom were very close. Then the two began to feel more than friendship for each other. Then one day dad took the first step and asked mom out. That same day dad confessed to mom and they began to be boyfriend and girlfriend, but dad still had that bad memory of what happened with Uraka. It seemed like he would never forget it, but 4 years after finishing the UA, I was born. The day I was born, according to dad, he was the happiest man in the world and began to forget everything about Uraka, erasing that bad memory from my dad's mind, and since then mom and dad were happy forever. When Kohana finished counting, everyone had a happy expression, all except a brown-haired girl with green eyes. This was Izumi. Her father, Izuku, noticed that Izumi seemed sad and angry. He then pulled her to him and hugged her against his chest while he rubbed her hair. Izuku, what happened, daughter? Izumi, Dad, why does that bitch Uraka always hurt you in different dimensions? Because she makes you cold and lose your smile, said Izumi, crying in her father's chest. He hugged her harder, not enough to hurt her. Izuku couldn't stand to see her cry and said, Izuku, calm down daughter, nobody will hurt me or make me lose my smile, calm down. Izumi, promise me dad, she said, looking at her parents with eyes full of small tears. Izuku looked her in the eyes, wiped away the tears she had in her eyes and said to her, Izuku, I promise. After little Izumi fell asleep on her father's chest, he let her sleep while he looked back at Kendo, who was looking at Izuku with eyes that seemed to show a lot of tenderness. When she noticed that Izuku's gaze couldn't help but blush, but she continued to look at Izuku with tender eyes and said, "Kendo, you really are a good father and you will be a great father." Izuku, "I guess so, but now I don't know what to do." Kendo, "Like that?" Izuku, "Well, now I don't think all my daughters can sleep in my bed." Kendo, "Wait, you don't sleep with them?" Izuku, "I don't sleep on the couch so they can sleep more or less relaxed." Kendo, "Seriously, you are a great father, but shouldn't we talk about this with Director Nezu to see if he can help us in any way?" Izuku, "Yes, it would be best if we went now." Kendo, "Yes, let's go." Kendo said as she stood up from where she was sitting and took Kohana and Masumi's hand, while Izuku, who still had Izumi in his arms, took Jin's hand and then headed with Kendo to Director Nezu's office. Time skip. After a few moments of walking they arrived at the director's office. Izuku knocked on the door and heard a pass. Izuku opened the door and proceeded to enter while still having Izumi carried. Izuku entered and Kendo followed him. Upon entering, Izuku noticed that All Might was in the room. "Nezu, young Midoriya and Miss Kendo, what brings you here and who are those girls who look so much like Midoriya?" Izuku, "Well, Director Nezu, I've come to ask for your help because lately my children from the future have been appearing, as you can see." At what he said, both All Might and Nezu were surprised by the sudden revelation. All Might and Nezu looked at each other and then said, "All Might, you can explain yourself better, young Midoriya." Izuku, "Sure." Izuku said and proceeded to explain how his daughters from the future began to appear and began to explain that more of his children may continue to appear. Allmouth, "Well, to sum it up, one day a girl appeared who was your daughter along with a young Momo, and since that day when a girl says Midoriya, what would a daughter or son of mine and yours be like? It seems like a dimensional gap." Izuku went to answer, but at that moment next to All Might a dimensional gap appeared, causing everyone to open their mouths like crazy, while from the gap appeared a blonde girl with long hair that was held by a ponytail and this was tied by a pink scarf. The girl appeared to be around 12 years old, with a striking resemblance to both Izuku and All Might. She was dressed in a white and purple dress. In the middle of the dress her face looked like All Might but had freckles that made her look like Izuku, and her green eyes with a shine similar to her father, and she was white skin. Izuku went to answer, but at that moment a dimensional gap appeared next to All Might, making everyone open their mouths like crazy, while from the gap appeared a blonde girl with long hair that was held by a ponytail. 6. The girl who had just appeared looked around her, finding everyone with their mouths open and surprised. The girl could only get out a drop of water, anime style. She continued looking at the whole room and found All Might. She looked at him scared, and then she found Izuku and she disappeared in a yellow ray to appear below her father looking at him. She pulled his pants so he could see her like that. Izuku looked at her and thought, "Izuku, full cowl." Izuku thought but looked at his newly appeared daughter and noticed that she was scared, so he knelt down to her height and hugged her, causing her to relax a little. Izuku looked at her after the hug and said, "Izuku, come on daughter, don't be afraid, nobody will hurt you, but why are you so scared?" "Daddy, why is mom a man and not a woman, and why are you so young?" Izuku, "Daughter, what happens is that we are not in your reality or dimension and neither in your time, but rather you are in another dimension and in the past of this reality. I understand something is breaking spacetime, causing many dimensions to join and affect this reality, but luckily you have dad, it only affects you and your companions." Izuku, "Exactly, by the way, what is your name?" "My name is Tora Midoriya, daughter of Izuku Midoriya and Tashinyari Midoriya." At what the girl said, everyone finally came out of the shock, and All Might accidentally returned to his skeletal form and said, "Toshinori, I am a woman in some reality and I am married to Midoriya Shonen." Tora, "Exactly, mom, by the way, dad, who is that little girl you have in your arms?" Izuku, "So to speak, she is your sister from other realities just like them." She said, pointing to her daughters who were looking at their new sister. They smiled and said, "Daughters of Izuku/Izumi/Tora. Welcome, sister." Izuku, "Look, Mr. Nezu, it's not a lie, so help me." Nezu, "Sure, but how can I help you, because this can become a big problem if it is not controlled." Izuku, "Could you help me by giving me a place for my daughters to stay?" Nezu, "That's a great idea, but I'm not going to give you a house just for your daughters, but I also need their mothers except All Might to also live there to see if something happens, so now they can follow me." Izuku, Kendo and young dates Midoriya, said the little mouse, and then began to walk towards the exit of the office. Director Nezu took the Midoriya family to a part far from the UA but close to the dormitories. Then in the distance they could see a big house, but big house is an understatement because this looked like a second UA. Nezu, "Well, Midoriya family, this will be your house from now on." Before, This was the teacher's house, but it was no longer used because they did not want to move. This house has more than 50 rooms, all decorated. They have a kitchen, pool, gym, and many more. All the Midoriyas present were more than surprised by the big house they were seeing. Then Izuku said, "Izuku, thank you Sir Nezu.